to set record. And so welcome everyone, I'm Rabbi Michael Bernholtz. I am in yet a different location for this class. I'm in our religious school hall, and some folks noticed our beautiful sanctuary roof that was on a church that was demolished in the late 70s and then was moved to this location, and our sanctuary was built under it. I'm in Temple Beth Sholom in Vero Beach, Florida, and it is wonderful to be here for the 7th installment of our counting our way through tradition and counting our days. We are in the midst of the Omer. Today is the 46th day of the counting of the Omer. That's 6 weeks and 4 days in the counting of the Omer. We are down to the very, very end of the Omer as we have departed Egypt 46 days ago. We are marching through the wilderness and we are heading towards Mount Sinai in the celebration of Shavuot. We have been going 7 weeks, each week a different ritual. We do have on the Temple Beth Sholom of Vero Beach YouTube channel is a listing of all of our playlist that has all of the sessions so far. We started with candle lighting. We have looked at tzitzit. We have looked at yard site mikvah. We have looked at Brit Milah. There have been a number of rituals, each taught by different pairs of rabbis. Today we are joined by Rabbi Gidon Isaacs and Rabbi Emily Losben Ostrov. One is in Indiana, Illinois, and the other is in North Carolina. And today, how fitting it is that we close our class with Havdalah, with the separation and the end of Shabbat, going from holy back into our regular week. I will also point out that there is chat active, so if you would like to ask them questions as they present, just put a message in the chat. You can also use the raise hand function. But I do ask that nobody call out. It is actually very much easier if you will go ahead and mute your audio so we don't get audio feedback. And if you have your video on, it might show up in the recording. And so that if you are there and you're listening but not watching, your face will could show up on the recording, just as a heads up. But I know there are some of our teachers also do actually like having your video up so they can see your reactions. It does make a big difference for us when we're teaching on Zoom to know that our audience is there and listening and bringing their spirit and strength. And if they raise their eyebrows, we see them because they might have a question or curiosity. So chat, raise hand function, and the wave is the hardest. But those are wonderful ways to communicate, and I am going to turn it over to my colleagues, to Rabbi Losben Ostrov, to Rabbi Isaacs, and I am excited to hear about Havdalah. And who is going first?
Well, I'm going to share my screen right away so that we can start with a blessing, and then I will myself turn it over as well. So here we go. I know for many of you, you may start just as we're going to finish our discussion with an opportunity to talk about Havdalah and separation. Want to give us an opportunity to separate from any of the stress or running around we were doing and to get ourselves ready to engage and to delve into our discussion. So I invite you to center yourself. Take a moment, take a deep breath, and I find the best way to say prayers together is to repeat a few words at a time. So feel free to unmute yourself if you would like while we say this prayer together, or you can remute, whichever you would like. So please feel free to repeat after me. Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav.
Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav.
Vitzivanu la'asok.
Vitzivanu la'asok.
B'divrei Torah.
B'divrei Torah.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. And for that, let us all say Amen.
Amen. Amen.
And you can remute yourself, and I turn it over to Rabbi Isaacs to introduce us into this wonderful little ceremony known as Havdalah.
Thank you. Wonderful to see everyone today. Thank you for being here. Your presence is a blessing. We are going to be looking at Havdalah, and so we first wanted to just ask, and I can scroll through, you can give a thumbs up or you can chat if this is a ritual that you have experienced, and if you have experienced it, you can write a word or two of your impression, or in the chat you could also you can let us know if you haven't, but just wanted to gauge a little bit. I'll give you a second to react there.
I did see Anne shaking her head no. So
Thank you.
I love that we're introducing this to you. So again, feel free to, put a comment in.
And I'll, as we're beginning, giving you just a second to do that, apologize for leaving early, but hopefully modeling as Rabbi, meaning of Rabbi, get wax everywhere. Maybe we'll have some practical life hacks for dealing with Havdalah wax. Rabbi is teacher, and we know any good teacher is also a learner. So I am actually at a gathering of rabbis who are learning from. I have the good fortune of learning from one of my mentors and teachers, who some of you may know, the woman's commentary behind me here. She's one of the editors there, Andrea Weiss. So Dr. Rabbi Andrea Weiss. So I apologize. After I'm done teaching, I will be jumping off of Zoom, but I leave you in very capable hands here. And we'll discuss throughout. We'll get to be a team here, at least for the next little bit. So I want to begin, we asked that question just to, I still want to begin by talking about the practical element of Havdalah, and when it's done, how it's done, and going through the blessings and ritual items, with a note that at various points I'll either note explicitly or just that you should have rest assured that we will come back to talk about the deeper meanings and spiritual instruction that we find built into these rituals. So, and to begin, we have just the name itself, Havdalah, which means dividing or a division. And we'll talk about why that is, what it means, but I'll just acknowledge even the fact that we have a ritual that marks a dividing time is itself something unique, living in a culture that is fast-paced, fast-moving, and does not seem to stop for anything, much less to mark division in time on a weekly basis, which is what we do. Havdalah comes at the end of the Sabbath, at the end of Shabbat, Saturday. We're taught that when we can see 3 stars in the sky, it is time to recite Havdalah. Of course, that's literal, but not exclusive, meaning there are workarounds. If it's a cloudy sky, it's meant to evoke the darkness. We know that the sun has fully set, and there is a long window of time given within which we can say Havdalah. We can say it all the way till Tuesday at sundown. So when I used to run a religious school and we met Tuesday, those Tuesday students didn't come. We would do it Sunday morning for the students there Sunday, but on Tuesday we would do Havdalah for them as well. So it is, I want to give you a sense of the choreography and what I call atmospherics as well. For those who haven't experienced this, it is a very kind of peaceful, communal ritual, and done in that way, recognizing the end of Shabbat with, we'll talk about and show the dramatic, right here, the ritual items, but we can see that braided candle with several wicks really shines, lets off a very powerful light, and we'll bless over it. And so to really experience that and appreciate it, you'll typically find that all the lights are turned off in a room where Havdalah is being done. It's after Shabbat, so that's permitted in a traditional sense. Often when you do it in a group, you gather in a circle. There's a very strong communal feel, standing in a circle together or sitting as people are able, of course. And as each ritual item is mentioned, so I don't have to say this at each one, generally it's lifted up to kind of indicate and give it kind of a place of honor, and so everyone can see what we're blessing over. So what are we blessing over? And I'll say also it's very musical. We are going to say the blessings, but to recognize there's especially in the Reform movement, our wonderful Debbie Friedman of blessed memory wrote a beautiful tune that has in between the blessings a nigun, a wordless melody that I believe you'll have the pleasure of hearing Rabbi Emily sing and teach you at the end. So that'll give you a little bit of a gate, an entryway, the secret password to doing Havdalah everywhere, knowing that nigun. So we go through, we're going to show, Rabbi Emily will show the blessings as we go. We first bless over the wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine.
So if I can interject one thing, Rabbi Isaacs, if that's okay?
Yes, you want to bring the blessing down and we can...
Sure. I just want to, in case for those of you who are unfamiliar with the ceremony, I just want to give an overview that, and we'll talk about this in more detail as we go through, but the items that you need. So Vanna White from Vero Beach, that's going to be your new name, Rabbi Bernholz, is just showing us what Rabbi Isaacs was starting to say. So first, I just want to kind of, in case you want to do it yourself, if you've never done it, you want the wine or grape juice. So there we go. And we just did that blessing. And then that beautiful little pomegranate he's showing is a spice box. We'll talk more about that. So you need spices, and then our candle with multi-wicks, and we'll talk about that. But that's what you need. So for those of you who want to play along at home.
Oh, you're muted.
And a match.
And
that candle does need to get lit. Thank you.
And spices in the spice box, and wine or the fruit of the vine in the Kiddush cup.
yes, it helps. And along those lines, if you're using wine in a bottle that has a corkscrew, you would need a corkscrew. Yeah, anyway.
And there's a reason the rabbis know all of this. You can guess.
Okay, thank you so much. Turn it back over to you, Rabbi Isaac. We had the blessing of the wine, which everyone I'm sure is familiar with now, and I'll go to the next blessing. Can you still, let me go back.
Well, so actually, hold on, if you don't mind holding on one moment. Sure. Thank you for Rabbi Emily. I set the tone, or set the, as I called it, I gave you the setting, set the stage. That's what I'm looking for. So you gather together, you light that candle, and as you will see, we go through 3 blessings, and as we bless each one, I guess I'll mention here, I was going to mention at the end, it's really seen as one complete ritual. So we're used to blessing over grape juice or wine and drinking immediately. In fact, it's a good moment to say, if it hasn't been before, the protocol, let's call it, for Jewish blessings is you bless and immediately you do. You don't want any pause. This is one case where, perhaps because it's seen, all the blessings together is seen as a total ritual. Many instances in my personal practice, you'll drink at the very end from the grape juice, or wine. But Rabbi Emily, I'm sorry to, I'm sure I'm not stealing your thunder here, but as you mentioned, your ritual, it makes perfect sense to take a drink right then. You bless over the grape juice or wine. I don't know why. I guess I have 2 sons who are underage, so I guess I keep going to grape juice. You can totally do this ritual with children. And so, or you could do it at the end. Funny enough, I've been in many settings where they don't drink it at all. They sort of forget, and because it's so much about the other symbols. They're so dramatic and powerful.
I'm happy that you added that, Rabbi Isaacs, because when you don't want to forget, because that would be even worse if we completely forgot, and it does happen. We use the wine, and we're going to talk about that. I like to pass it around sometimes too. In this COVID era, we can't really share glasses, maybe like we once did. But I hope everyone is also seeing something you've learned throughout these last 7 sessions, which is you get 2 Jews and you have 3 opinions. So here we have 1 practice, but at least 2 different ways to do it.
So I wanted to, didn't want to go to the next one yet, because something else I want to share, which is a little bit of my own inspiration from others. I wouldn't say there's a particular source for this, but we'll talk more about Havdalah as a transition and a point of reflection. But what I like to encourage people as we do Shabbat from the beginning to see each blessing, each ritual item as an opportunity as we stand in between at the end of one week and the beginning of another, to look back on the week that passed and take inspiration for our intentions in that looking back, in our mini nostalgia. Take the inspiration from each ritual item. So wine, we often talk about as sweet, especially Manischewitz and Jewish wine, notoriously sweet. And so I like to invite people before we drink that wine, or as we're drinking it, or in that moment, to use that as an opportunity to reflect back on sweet moments of sweetness, moments of joy, happiness, laughter in the week that just passed. And all of these are opportunities to bring that with us. The time works so that it's gone, but this is our opportunity to bring the experiences forward that we want to savor. So with wine, sweetness, happiness, joy. The next one we have, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, creator of all kinds of spices, or variety of spices. So at that point, and we can go back to out of the screen share, we have that something that holds spices. Generally, it's come to be cloves. So it's this pleasant smell. And after we bless, we take a deep breath in. We inhale to smell the spices. And often we either pass it around, or if it's a big group, I've been in places where we have multiple spice boxes so that everyone can enjoy. And the intention I invite for that is taken from the literal meaning of the word inspiration, which in Latin, for all you Latin students out there, 2 years of Latin, high school Latin, and this is my takeaway, so that's something, I guess, is to inspire, in spiritu, in breath in, right? So our English word for inspire actually comes from breathing in. And so I invite people to think of a moment of inspiration, and I frame that as a moment of spirituality, a moment of connectedness, a moment that made us see ourselves as part of a broader universe. And I say moment, also relational. You can think of a person who did that for you, or a time when you did that for someone else, for any of these. So that's the spices. The next is the candle. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei me'orei ha'esh. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, creator of the lights of fire. So this one has some pretty cool choreography, and I'll show you.
Rabbi Vanna White did say that he would light the candle for us if we'd like to see what it looks like. So even though we wouldn't, as was mentioned, technically light it because it's not right after Havdalah, we're not actually doing it at this time. I think it's great for us to actually see the beautiful flame. Rabbi Isaacs, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Rabbi Reynolds to light it, but please keep talking.
Well, so what I'll note here while I'm talking, I want to show the choreography that, well, before we're spotlighting, you hold your fingers up like this, and you kind of turn them back and forth. And I'll explain. Actually, we're getting it lit. Notice that the blessing is not like Shabbat lehadlik ner, to kindle the light, but rather it's a blessing on the light of the fire. And so this piece with the fingers is actually about when it's a dark room, so you can imagine this, you are actually seeing the darkness of your fingers and the light in between. And another piece, I don't know if we'll even get to the bit of text I wanted to share, but there's also a seeing, if you have your fingernails are grown at all, you see through your fingernails, which are opaque, you can see the light. So it's a way, nice. Ooh, pretty fingers. Maybe we'll see those jazz hands again. All right. So that helps us. How would we see the light otherwise? I mean, we can see it, but by creating that kind of, holding the fingers up, we see the differentiation. And so you can see the darkness and the light, and that really helps you appreciate the light. It also segues nicely into the final blessing, which will be about differentiation. So I'll say implicit within that third blessing is something about Havdalah itself, the whole capacity to differentiate, to see differences, light and dark. And well, we'll get to, why don't we look at that blessing. But when also, for any of you out there who are either real New Yorkers like me or lovers of liberty, we lift up the Havdalah candle, and you can do your best Statue of Liberty impersonation you can imagine while you hold up that candle. Okay, so our final blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, ben or lechoshech, ben yom hashvi'i lesheshet yemei hama'aseh, Baruch atah Adonai, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who distinguishes between sacred and ordinary, between light and darkness, between the seventh day and the 6 days of creation. Blessed are you, Adonai, who distinguishes between sacred and ordinary. And I will note that I don't know how much we've, just to acknowledge that our tradition, in a reform context, we modernize, we reform our tradition. In the traditional phrasing of this blessing, we do talk about differentiating between Israel and the rest of the nations. I love that this version doesn't have it. I work around that by just saying the very end, because that's the essence of it, the differentiating between the sacred and the everyday. And notice neither of these are necessarily privileged, light and darkness, right? Are
you ready, Rabbi Isaacs, for me to finish off Havdalah?
Oh, thank you. Yes. So and then we concluded the reason Rabbi Emily talked about, sometimes we're so excited to get to this dramatic finale that's not actually part of the, I would say I've never seen anything that puts this as part of the ritual. It's just drama. And a good thing to remember, right? We don't, with Judaism, It's a religion. There's mystery, spirituality. We don't have to have a reason or a rationale. The emotional oomph is also laudable, valuable, and part of why we do what we do. So either we would drink now or we drink already at the beginning, so we get so excited about what's about to happen that we don't want to forget to first take our little drink. So why don't we spotlight you completely, and everyone can listen. I'll be quiet. So
I hope you heard that.
You should have heard the sizzle of it extinguishing. And in a dark room, it's also very dramatic. It's that little bit of light. So Rabbi Emily, if I can take just 5 minutes, if that's okay.
Of course.
I know I'm asking you with the spotlight on. This isn't the greatest opportunity for you to say no, but hopefully
I wouldn't say no anyway.
Thank you. So I want to quickly, there is a collection of commentary on the Torah, a midrash, right? A kind of narrative storytelling commentary that traces the light of Havdalah to creation. And the idea is that when the first darkness fell, Adam and Eve were terrified, but they knew through communication with God that it was a holy day, it was Shabbat. So they had a kind of divine protection. They were okay. At the end of that Shabbat, that terror returned. They knew it was going to be a normal day. They weren't going to have that same divine protection. Some of the terror would be might be from evil all around, having eaten from that tree of knowledge, and some of it literally from the snake, who they knew was a devious character and was out to get them. So that's where we get to this commentary. Okay, so Rabbi Judah said, "The Holy One, blessed be God, kept the Sabbath first in the heavenly regions, and Adam." So I'm going to read from this midrash. Kept the Sabbath first in the lower regions. The Sabbath day protected him, Adam, from all evil. And there's a real focus on Adam. So where is Eve? Let's not worry about that. And comforted him on accounts of all the doubts of his heart. And it quotes the Psalms to prove that Adam is saying this quote from Psalms, "In the multitude of my doubts within me, you comfort, your comforts delight my soul." That's a proof. That's seen as a quote from Adam. Okay. So now this other rabbi said, "From the tree under which they hid themselves, they took actually, I'm going to just skip through this. An interesting interpretation where they say what they actually, God dressed them with were the skin of the snake. So you could see why the snake would be out to get them. Not only that, but God cursed them, saying the snake was going to bite them at their heels. So here's the good part. At twilight on Saturday evening, Adam was meditating in his heart and saying, "Perhaps the serpent which deceived me will come in the evening, and he will bruise me in the heel." A pillar of fire was sent to give him illumination about him and to guard him from all evil. Adam saw the pillar of fire and rejoiced in his heart. And he put forth his hands to the light of the fire and said, "Blessed art thou, O ruler Adonai, ruler of the universe, who creates the flames of fire." And when he removed his hands from the light of the fire, he said, "Now I know that the holy day has been separated from the work day here below on earth, for fire may not be kindled on the Sabbath day." And in that hour, Adam said, "Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who divides the holy from the profane." So I want to note so I just, as I said, we'll come back to the meaning. And I noted how kind of one blessing bleeds into the other. So you can see how Adam, this fire, as fire does, this is almost, you could see the rabbis, they're coming now way after Greek mythology. So think of Prometheus or any kind of fire-giving myth. You've got a little bit of an element of that in here. The original fire came for protection at the end of Shabbat, but also for light. And so light literally allows us to see, and in seeing, it literally helps us differentiate things, right? It's much harder in the darkness to see the difference between the things around me physically. And so light helps me to discern what's around me. But in that, and this is the beauty of Havdalah, and I think we'll get to, we're going to talk, Rabbi Emily will talk about some of the, what we call the salvific, a fancy word for salvation-oriented, right? Saving, otherworldly, right? Kind of elements. It's not that so light physically helps us see, but we all know that sight as a metaphor for understanding, right? If you get something, you say, now I see. You don't literally mean, you see the idea, but you get it in your mind. And so that ability not just to physically see, but mentally discern between things, right? So we have the discerning between light and dark, which is physical, but in that blessing, we have discerning between holy and everyday. That is not something we really are able to physically see, but those are constructs that our mind understands. And the idea which this midrash brings up a little further on, but for the sake of time, we're not going to look at it right here, is the idea that the key to our salvation, in the sense of living in a better world, is our ability to discern between things, to discern what we need, what we don't need, to discern what is holy and we want to elevate, and what is everyday and we want to leave as everyday, and even recognizing in our postmodern world that it's not always a black and white distinction, right, between those two, that there is mixing, and sometimes from moment to moment, something that in one moment is holy or special and another moment becomes everyday. And so blessing over this, appreciating this incredible blessing of our mind and our capacity to differentiate as being a key towards holiness and towards living in a better world is an essential element of Havdalah. And as with all the rituals, I'm hoping you see a teaching for us that Judaism offers to take into our lives in general. So I'm going to end that, pass it over to Rabbi Emily, and thank you all for being here and for listening, and wishing you a Chag Sameach, a happy Shavuot, happy holiday. Thank
you, Rabbi Isaacson. I say amen to that. Amen, amen to your last comment there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now that we had a chance to go over a little bit of the macro, so to speak, I want to look a little bit more into the micro, looking at each of the blessings and the meanings, and also I want to answer if anyone has any questions. One of the things I want to also say, well, first let me stop. I saw, Anne, that you put a question in the chat about wax, so we're gonna, or about fire. So we'll talk about the logistics of the fire in a moment as we talk about each of the symbols. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments or anything else you want to bring up? You can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand if there's anything at this point. And it's good to see our friends from Ugadas Israel. Good that hope you can hear me and see me okay? Okay, fantastic, great. So one of the things that I want to make sure we focus on, and you saw that Rabbi Bernholtz made sure to make sure we could hear the sizzle of when we take the Havdalah and we put it into the wine, is that the Havdalah ceremony, more than almost any other Jewish experience, involves all 5 senses. It's really awesome when you think about it. And Heather, I can see you smiling because I'm getting excited just talking about it. And I think you're getting excited that I'm getting excited to talk about it as well. All 5 senses, think about it. We with the Havdalah, you have the taste of the wine, you have the smell of the spices. You see, when you're looking at your fingers, you want to see the light reflecting. There's a lot of different reasons. As we did that, we held up our hands. We mentioned about seeing the nails. Some people will also say you look at your fingernails because after Shabbat, you haven't been working. And so your hands should be nice and clean. And you should be able to see clean hands as a reminder of the clean from the week and from Shabbat. So we have the idea of the sight, not to mention the beautiful flame as well that we see. Also, when you put your hand near the flame, you'll feel it. So there we have one more sense. And of course, the last of the 5 senses is to hear it. So I always make sure to make a particular point about hearing that sizzle. But of course, we also hear the blessings. So even if you don't know the blessings, just simply to say amen, to hear them and being able to participate in that. And when we think about it, there's a few other Jewish rituals that involve smell. You might be familiar with Sukkot, when we shake the lulav and the etrog. We make sure to smell the etrog at that point. But I love that this short Havdalah ceremony can incorporate a completeness of ourselves. And in a way, there's also a sense of completion as we're completing, moving from Shabbat into the rest of the week. Any comments or questions on that idea of using our whole bodies for Havdalah? Okay. So want to go, let me, before I forget and I don't get to answer it, I want to talk about, Anne asked the question, are there wax problems, any fire problems, or stories with that big flame? So I'm looking for Rabbi Goldwasser to smile as well, because I think just about every rabbi can tell you of setting off a fire alarm. It's always great doing Havdalah in a hotel. You know, that's a lot of fun, setting off the fire alarm, and hopefully the water doesn't come down, but I'm sure we've had that experience. Also, anyone who's lit a Havdalah, it's a bit of a dance to figure out how you get that big flame from getting the wax all over you. As Rabbi Bernholtz said before, sometimes you'll get that wax in the wine, even before you extinguish it in the wine. It doesn't make it any better flavor, I don't think. I haven't found that too. And I'm sure on my floor here, there's maybe still wax, but we try to wrap it in some foil. But let's speak for a moment about that flame. So a camper drinks the juice. That's very funny. What happens when you run out of the wine or the juice to extinguish it? Which is interesting. Again, it's not Shabbat. So if you needed to, you can blow out the candle, though because it is so big, it takes a lot of extra effort and it's not as dramatic and beautiful if you do that, but you can blow it out if you want to. And when you use the candle, you reuse it every week until you're down to nothing. You don't get a new candle each week. But the basis of the idea for having the Havdalah candle is that you have to have at least 2 wicks. You want to have a larger flame. There's a lot of different reasons for that. One of the reasons that I love is the idea of each of the different it's very funny. You're seeing the rabbis back and forth with a little bit of humor here of the practical. And do you see what you opened up? This Pandora's box that you opened up. It's now become a how-to on lighting and relighting and how to do. Anyway, I joke, but it's amazing. The ceremony itself, you can do it. I wanted to say this as well. You can do it very quickly. It can be done in just a couple of minutes, or it can be done a little bit longer with some songs and some singing and making it really an experience. But talking about, want to go back again real quick and just talk briefly about each of the symbols for a moment. So I'm going to go back to sharing my slides, and I do encourage you to keep putting in your comments, those of you who have experienced Havdalah, those who haven't. Havdalah is also great because it can be done by yourself, it can be done at home, it can be done with a congregation. As the rabbis were discussing, it can be done on the beach as long as you bring the right accoutrements. And anyway, so as we discussed, the wine is a symbol of the joy, and we want the joy of Shabbat to last even into the new week. And again, you've seen how so many of the rituals we've talked about over these last 7 weeks have a component of wine to it. And an interesting ritual that you will see some people do with Havdalah is at the end, after they've extinguished it, this tends to be more of a Hasidic ritual, but they will take their fingers and dip it in the wine and actually put it over their eyelids. Toby, I see you shaking your head. Have you ever seen that or experienced that? No. There's different meanings, but some is, to kind of keep that sweetness with you, for it to be good luck. Yes, it might be a little bit sticky, but it's also so that you should be able to see things through joy and have joy in your life as we move forward. The next blessing that we spoke about after we do the wine, and this is pretty self-explanatory. Again, I just want to make sure every one of you have the opportunity to experience this on your own if you want. With the wine, again, you can use grape juice, any kind of wine or juice is fine. It's nice if you have a complete, beautiful Havdalah set like Rabbi Bernhold's, but you do not need to have a set. You can have just a plastic cup if that's all you, well, plastic you'll be worried about with the fire, but all you need is to have the liquid, the wine or the juice, the fruit of the vine. The next blessing, when we talked about the spices, I want to share another interesting way. Some people will just use cinnamon sticks or cloves. A beautiful tradition I love to use, especially when I'm with a group of people, is we take an orange or a clementine, and you take cloves and you stick it into the orange or the clementine, and you're kind of making your own Havdalah spice box, so to speak, and you're mixing those two spices, the spice, the sweet fragrance from the orange, or I guess you could use any kind of something that smells sweet, so be it even a lemon or an etrog or a grapefruit, and you're sticking the clove in there. And one of the nice things is I've done where we've had people in a group and you kind of pass it around, everyone gets a clove to start with, and as you pass it around, you say something nice, something sweet about the Shabbat. Rabbi Isaacs had mentioned that as kind of an intention before. One of the other things that I love, and some of the rabbis may have done this before, is when you do that with the cloves, or even if you just pass around a container of cloves, is you take the clove and you put it in your pocket so that you have a little bit of spice with you for the rest of the week. So you put your hand into your pocket and you remember the sweetness of Shabbat. And even if you're having a very hectic, busy, troublesome week, even for just one moment, if you pause and you feel it and you smell it, you can have that connection to the sweetness and bring you back to that sense of peace. And again, Rabbi Isaacs mentioned it, the sense of peace of Shabbat. Shabbat is supposed to be a symbol for us of the world to come, of what it's going to be like when there's finally a messianic age. And so we're going to get to that in a moment when we talk about singing Eliyahu Hanavi to close out our ceremony. So again, the spices, it's nice if you have a very fancy spice box, and you can actually look online to see all kinds of incredible ones. There's some really beautiful, particularly Yemenite spice boxes you may have seen, which are very intricate with silver, really quite beautiful. Or you can just use any kind of plastic container and pop the top and smell the spices that way as well. You just want something that smells sweet and fragrant, not something that you don't like. You don't want to make a bad face after smelling it. The next, of course, as we said, is the blessing over the fire of the Anshe. And when we're talking about this, again, for you to do it yourself, if you don't have the Havdalah candle, you can take 2 Hanukkah candles or 2 Shabbat candles and put them together. You just want to make sure you have at least 2 wicks coming together to make a greater flame. And there's a beautiful idea of how we leave. Just as we start Shabbat with the lighting of fire, we end Shabbat with the extinguishing of fire. And it ties us into that dual commandment of Shabbat, of to remember and to guard, to Shomer and Zachor. And so in a way, we're also tying that in the idea of starting with fire and ending with fire is another way of tying in that important commandment that we get in the 10 commandments. We'll get even this week as we come up to Shavuot. Any other questions on the 3 acts, the wine, the spices, and the fire? Okay. So before we get to talking about Eliyahu Hanavi and closing out the ceremony, I just want to take another minute to look at this beautiful idea of the separation. And I just want to ask you to think for a moment, maybe you want to put it in the chat. What are some of the things that you want to distinguish? What is something that you want to separate? Whether it's for yourself, whether it's a way you separate Shabbat from the rest of the week. You know, when we think of holy and we think of the opposite of holy, we tend to, as English speakers, we tend to say the opposite of holy is profane, but that's not true. The opposite of holy is ordinary. But how do we elevate ourselves from the holy of Shabbat and hold on to some of that holiness for ourselves throughout the rest of the week? So I want to encourage, if any of you want to put in the chat or if you have any thoughts about this kind of separation. And I actually want to share with you another passage. Some of you may be familiar with a woman by the name of Marcia Falk, who is a liturgist. She has written or rewritten a lot of prayers in a beautiful way. And I want to share with you her way of talking about the distinguishing here. And so let me go back here. You should be able to see, this is from her book, A Book of Blessings. And I like the way that she, let me see, wait, there we go. Okay. How she distinguishes these distinctions for this. So okay. Anybody want to read for us? Well, if you were, normally I would put you on the spot, but I'll be nice. And I will, though I saw Anne, you unmuted. Anne, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll read it, sure.
Thanks, Anne.
Distinctions.
Okay.
Let us distinguish parts within the whole and bless their differences. Like the Sabbath and the 6 days of creation, may our lives be made whole through relation. As rest makes the Sabbath precious, may our work give meaning to the week. Let us separate the Sabbath from other days of the week, seeking wholeness in each.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm realizing that our time is running short, and I want to make sure that I get through to everything. So we've talked about this blessing, and after this, as we extinguish and the candle and we move to the end of our ceremony, we'll say these words, Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. You teach us to distinguish between the commonplace and the holy. Teach us also to transform our sins to merits. Let those who love you be numerous as the sands and the stars of heaven. And then our greeting at the end of our Havdalah ceremony is Shavua Tov. So just as we wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom when Shabbat comes in, you wish one another a Shavua Tov. And we referenced this a little bit before, but you can really start wishing people a Shabbat Shalom today. It's Wednesday, but you could really start wishing people Shabbat Shalom, and you could keep Shabbat going as long as Tuesday. We mentioned that. The idea is that you can never shorten Shabbat. You can extend it, but you never want to shortchange Shabbat, right? You can make it as long as you want. So I don't know how much many of our bosses would like it if we decided to take a whole week for Shabbat every week. That might not go over too well. But at the same time, this idea of hopefully extending it a little bit. And we talked about knowing when Shabbat ends because we see 3 stars in the sky. You want to make sure it is surely nightfall. Better you should wait an extra half an hour or an hour or 2 than to end Shabbat earlier. This gift from God, you wouldn't want to say, I'm not going to take it all. I'll just take a little bit of it. Rather, you want to take it all and embrace it. So we wish one another a Shavua Tov. Shavua meaning week, Tov meaning good. So we have a good week. And then it is also traditional to sing the song Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. So we have spoken in these classes. We spoke, Rabbi Goldwasser spoke in reference when we were talking about the welcoming ceremonies, the birth, naming, and the Brit Milah, of having a chair set aside for Elijah. We always want to put a chair for Elijah at a baby naming, just in case that child is going to be the Messiah. We want Elijah to be there with us. We have a cup for Elijah at our Seder. And at the end of Havdalah, we have an opportunity to wish for Elijah the prophet to come, which is our way of saying that we want the Messiah to come. We want or Messianic age. We want a life of peace and peace in our world. I found an interesting reading when I was preparing for this today, that one of the reasons we say we wish for Elijah to come at the end of Shabbat and not at the beginning of Shabbat is that if Elijah came at the beginning, we would be too busy greeting Elijah and saying hello to get ready for Shabbat. I don't know. We'll make time. We'll make time. But I'm going to sing just a few words from this, just so that you'll recognize it. You might hear it. If you know it, feel free to sing along with me. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi. Bimhera v'yameinu yavo eleinu Imoshiach ben David, Imoshiach ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi. So you might be thinking we're singing about Elijah, and on Passover we started singing about Elijah when we have the cup of Elijah, but then we also added into Passover the cup for Miriam, right? We have the Kos Eliyahu, we have Elijah's cup filled with wine, we have Miriam's cup filled with water. Well, should we welcome Miriam as well into Havdalah? So there is a version of this song as well that recognizes and celebrates Miriam, the prophet, or Miriam, the prophetess. I have mixed feelings. I'll be very honest about this. I love that we are bringing in women and being egalitarian. And I say this especially as tomorrow, Thursday, June 2nd, marks the 50th anniversary of the very first woman being ordained as a rabbi in the United States. So definitely want to make sure that we're marking a sense of egalitarianism here. Though our stories and our traditions and what we say about Elijah coming to be the one to herald in the prophet, to herald in the Messiah, is not exactly the same with Miriam, but we recognize and celebrate that Miriam has been a huge part of a sense of salvation. For example, even salvation by bringing the waters to the Israelites in the desert. So here we have these words, Miriam the prophet, strength and song in her hand. Miriam, dance with us in order to increase the song of the world. Miriam, dance with us in order to repair the world. Soon she will bring us to the waters of redemption. So just in the sense, it's not part of our theology to say that Miriam is going to come back the way that we talk about Elijah, On the other hand, maybe the good works, maybe the memory of Miriam will help us to move towards all of us working to work in partnership with God and to repair the world and bring about the redemption. So I am looking and I realize that it's already 1 o'clock. It is the end of our time. And I want to just kind of end with, if you'll permit me just a few more moments to say a few more things. I want to invite you to repeat after me, so that you feel comfortable if you're ever in a Havdalah ceremony. There is a nigun, a song without words, and we use that as our entree into saying our prayers. Lai lai la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai lai ya la lai 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 ya la lai lai ya la lai ya lai ya la 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 lai lai ya lai la 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 lai lai ya la la lai 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 ya la lai lai ya la lai. That's the nigun that very many of us will sing. And I want to also just kind of end by saying this about Havdalah, that when we talk about Havdalah, we're often talking about separating the holy from the ordinary, but sometimes we separate the holy from the holy. And in fact, we're going to be doing that this very Saturday evening. We go right from Shabbat into Shavuot. So we move from one type of holiness into another type of holiness. And as we get ready to finish out our class and our time together these past 7 weeks, there is a moving, a separation from being together. And I hope that we can separate and move into a sense of holiness, that we always move from holiness to other holiness, and that we can take this sense with us. And so as we separate our time together, I personally want to thank everyone. I want to thank all of the rabbis, particularly Rabbi Bernholz, for putting this all together. And I want to thank all of you for being here. And if anyone has any other questions that you'd like to ask, or any comments on Havdalah, I'll stick around. But I think it's never a wrong time, even in the middle of the week like now, to say Shavua Tov. I wish you a good week and an early Shabbat Shalom and a happy Chag Shavuot Sameach, a wonderful Shavuot celebration.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Losben Ostrov. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us. How awesome to finish with Havdalah, to do that act of separation. It was interesting as you were singing, Kate immediately, so a member of my congregation, moved her head. She's in our religious school. When we do Havdalah with our religious school, that these sense experiences, as you all were speaking, are so powerful as part of our memory. And as soon as you started singing it, I could just see that smile and light in her eyes saying, wait, I know this. And so that is really quite incredible and powerful. If you would like, I am working on different collaborations like this for Tisha B'Av, maybe doing a series of classes in the month of Elul, of doing a lunch and learn like this in the month of Elul, is getting ready for the holy days. There are other opportunities for these. So if you would like to know more about those collaborations, I put my email in the chat. Folks are welcome to reach out to me, or if you are part of the congregational community and you would like your rabbi to bring your congregation into this, reach out to your rabbi, have them make contact with me. That's what started a lot of this, is Estelle Mills, who taught last week, Rabbi Mills. I reached out to her after a collaboration and said, can we collaborate? And that, look where this has led. So a big thank you to Rabbi Losben Ostrov and to Rabbi Isaacs. I'll see him a little bit later, but also to all of our rabbis and to all of you who've come to learn with us and share with us. And we look forward to crossing paths. As I mentioned earlier, this Saturday night, starting at 8 o'clock, there is a huge Tikkun Leil Shavuot, a virtual one. So if you go to Temple, I'm going to put it again in the chat, but if you go to Temple Sinai in Reno, I am not putting the link, I'm just putting the name, but if you search them and go to their website, you will see a registration for their Tikkun Leil Shavuot, and you are welcome to join in. I know I'll be teaching at 8 p.m. with Eastern with my dad. Rabbi Ostrov, are you teaching in that one?
Unfortunately, I'm not, but I will share. We have something at Temple of Israel here that you're welcome to Zoom in for if you want to check out our website as well. But I will make sure people know to join in for that in the wee hours. And if you still need me to teach, let me know. I'm always happy to cover the 4 o'clock slot. For some reason, that 4 a.m. Keep me going.
So, and again, if folks want, I did put my email in the chat, so just send me an email and I'll make sure you're on the list as we go forward with some of these different collaborations. So with that, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. Everybody have a Chag Sameach, have a wonderful Shavuot, eat some good cheese or cheesecake or dairy or ice cream, and enjoy some of the experience of the 10 Commandments. With that, Shavuot Tov and Chag Sameach. We're on Wednesday, it's in the middle. And everyone take care, and please, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.